I love Linux. It's one of those things that I've been talking to folks about for years now, and it's one of the pillars of content on my channels. It's something that you've probably seen a lot over here on Titus Tech Talk, but over on Chris Titus Tech, the main channel, I've kind of drawn down a lot of my Linux content, and a lot of people might be asking why. And the answer is quite simple, and it's a lot to deal with the community that revolves around Linux desktop. Now, Linux as a whole, I absolutely love. It's been something that I've dealt with in business for a decade plus, and I don't couldn't imagine a world without Linux in this server realm. When it comes to desktop, though, there's a lot of people treat it like a religion, and I have a huge problem with this. And it revolves around you can only use Linux for everything. And while I love using Linux for productivity needs, my day to day, I use it all the time for like my inside laptop. If I'm working productivity wise, there's nothing better than Linux for me. But on all my recent videos, you may have noticed a lot of Windows 11 and Windows based systems, and I do that on purpose. One, I'm trying to scare away a lot of the zealots of the Linux community, the ones that leave comments like, just switch to Linux or use Linux on every Windows video I make. Those types of people are causing a massive issue for Linux desktop in general. And I want to support Linux desktop. I don't think they do this on purpose. It's just one thing that I think a lot of people don't understand marketing in Linux, and people say marketing's the biggest problem with Linux, and I would say no, the biggest problem with Linux desktop is the community. And it's this elitism attitude that is a huge issue. And it's an issue because let's just take Linux out of the equation. Let's talk about soap, for instance. Let's say 80% of the world used one type of soap, and then you got this one other soap that 15% of people use, and then you have this other soap that's just like a super oddball that 1% of the population uses. And that came out, and its marketing behind it was anybody that doesn't use our soap, the other 99% are a bunch of noobs and don't know anything about anything. Therefore, our soap is superior in every single regard because we have open source standards and we do all this other stuff. What do you think the other 99% of people would think about that product? Would you go, oh, wow, look at all these elitists over here and their soap? I mean, man, they're so passionate about it. I should probably try that soap. Or would they be like, okay, those guys are some crazy hippie zealots about soap. I don't think I want to use that product. Now, that's probably a terrible analogy, but you get the point. And that's where the rest of the computing realm sits. And that's why I stopped talking about Linux desktop. It's because of this religion, this zealotness of it. Desktop operating systems are a tool. They should be treated as such. And I will not stand for that. And that's why I stopped talking about it, because frankly, it's just not good for anybody. It's not good for Linux. It's not good for any kind of person that would even think of it as an enthusiast operating system, because that's what it is at the end of the day. I still love covering Linux, obviously. On my main channel, I made a video about replacing KWin with BSPWM. There's still so much cool stuff in it. Get your creative juices flowing, and my love of computers is definitely reignited by Linux. But the one thing that takes away from that is the Linux community, which I will just come out and say is terrible. And nobody, I think a lot of other creators are afraid to say that because of the backlash they'd experience from it. But frankly, I would prefer those zealots to go elsewhere and watch somebody else that agrees with that religious point of view. Because to me, religion and operating systems don't go hand in hand, and some operating systems are better than others for certain tasks. Windows is better for gaming, Mac is better for video production, and Linux is better for productivity. It's just nobody ever says it out loud, and it drives me crazy. But with that said, go ahead, leave me a comment down below, because I'm sure there's going to be some hot takes on this one, but I don't care. I'm to a point where when I make stuff, I want to be passionate about it. I want to be excited about what I'm making. I don't want to talk about all this BS that does not matter. I want to just create something amazing for you to experience, whether that's a new way to modify Linux or Windows or Mac. I don't care. I just love that experience. And that's where it is all just creating something amazing and getting caught up in all this basically politics is not my jam. I hate politics. I hate religion. I don't like talking about that stuff, but it feels intertwined with a lot of the Linux community, and it makes me not want to talk about Linux. And that's why I've kind of cut back, especially on the main channel, because that hurts me more than helps me. And I still want to talk about Linux, especially when something happens, but it's not something that I would want to be the only thing I talk about, because it invites this toxic person into my community, and I want to make sure that person doesn't exist in my community, because there's just no way that helps anybody. And whether it's Linux, whether it's anything else, it doesn't help anybody. It's a terrible attitude to have, and it's sadly the majority of the Linux community has this attitude: just use Linux, or you have to use it only. And it's it's bad. It's bad. If you're a hobbyist or whatever it is, you have at it. But just know that Linux is not the best thing for a lot of things, and that's okay. It is great for certain things, and I still use it all the time, but that's why I stopped talking about Linux so much.